In Buddhist practice, performing liberation rites for the deceased is regarded as a critically important act. It not only concerns the future rebirth of the departed, but also deeply touches the hearts of countless relatives and loved ones. However, although many people know the practice of reciting sutras for liberation, few truly understand the profound distinctions between different sutras and mantras. Today, I will share with you a secret revealed by a highly venerable monk who is about to enter parinirvana, a profound Dharma method capable of determining the future destination of the deceased. In the late autumn of Mount Wutai, the forests are richly colored, and the maple leaves blaze like fire. Within Minzhong Temple, fallen leaves flutter in the air, covering the ground in a golden blanket. This millennium-old ancient temple, founded during the Tang dynasty, has withstood the vicissitudes of time and remains a flourishing center of Buddhist practice. On the bluestone steps before the Mahavira Hall, several elderly lay practitioners were whispering among themselves, their faces filled with worry. I heard that the abbot of our temple has been getting worse these past few days, an elderly layman named Zhao Mingda said solemnly. He has been studying and worshiping Buddha at Minzhong Temple for over 30 years, and shares a deep master-disciple relationship with the former abbot. Indeed, yesterday when I came to offer incense, I saw from afar the master being supported by 2 young novice monks, his face as pale as paper. Another lay practitioner named Wang sighed and said, "Yet he still insisted on giving teachings to the devotees, which is truly admirable." The day before yesterday, I just helped Zhang Jiaqiao perform a ritual for the passing of an elderly family member. Speaking of the ritual, lay practitioner Li suddenly lowered his voice and said, "I've always had a doubt. Last month, elderly Madame Zhou from the neighboring village passed away. Her family invited 2 groups of monks to perform Buddhist rites. One group chanted the Kṣitigarbha Sutra, while the other recited the Rebirth Mantra. This led to continuous disputes between them. I would like to ask which method is ultimately more effective." As soon as these words were spoken, the steps fell into complete silence. This question seems simple, yet it involves the most profound topic of birth and death in the Dharma, and no one dares to make a hasty conclusion. Just as several lay practitioners were lost in contemplation, a sudden urgent ringing of the bell came from deep within the monastery. Immediately, a young novice monk hurriedly ran over and loudly announced, "Attention, all lay practitioners. The abbot has little to say. Today, the final session will begin in the Dharma Hall. Everyone is requested to quickly gather in the Dharma Hall." This news spread across Wudong Mountain like a whirlwind in an instant. In less than an hour, the usually tranquil Minzhong Temple was bustling with people. Not only were the resident monks and devotees present, but also villagers from within a 100-mile radius, having heard news, quickly set aside their farming tasks and hurried over. The Dharma Hall and its surroundings were crowded with people, some even standing on the steps outside the windows, all eager to hear the final teachings of this venerable and esteemed old monk. The 92-year-old abbot of Minzhong Temple, Venerable Master Zhiyuan, sat cross-legged on the Dharma seat. His figure was already stooped, and his face looked haggard from illness. Yet those eyes were bright like lamps, radiating the light of wisdom that transcends life and death. Venerable Zhiyuan has practiced monastic life for over 60 years, mastering not only the Vinaya and Sutras, but also deeply understanding the Tripitaka and its 12 divisions, earning recognition as a great monk of his era. Amitabha Buddha, fellow practitioners, Venerable Zhiyuan joins hands in reverence. Though my voice is faint, it is clear and strong. This humble monk knows that his time is limited and that he will soon return to the West. Today, I have specially gathered everyone here, not for any other matter, but to speak about an important Dharma teaching that concerns the crucial matter of life and death. The Dharma Hall immediately fell into complete silence. Several elderly lay practitioners were already streaming tears. They all understood that the old abbot was leaving behind his final consciousness. Over the years, I have witnessed too many people losing their way during the liberation of the deceased. I only hope the Dharma master scans the surroundings with a gaze as piercing as a torch. Some people blindly recite the Kṣitigarbha Sutra, while others only know how to chant the Rebirth Mantra, yet they do not understand the crucial distinctions between them. What is even more concerning is that some people, to be on the safe side, chant both sutras and mantras together, which instead causes the deceased to become more confused and lose the opportunity for a favorable rebirth. These words struck the hearts of all present like a bolt of lightning, especially since many people have just lost their loved ones and are distressed about how to perform the rites for their peaceful transition. Upon hearing the old monk's words, they could not help but look at each other in astonishment, their hearts deeply moved. A middle-aged layperson could not help but stand up and ask, "Master Abbot, isn't the Kṣitigarbha Sutra and the Rebirth Mantra both able to help the deceased? Why is it said that choosing the wrong one can be harmful? What exactly is the difference between the two?" Thou Master nodded slowly and replied, "It is precisely because many people do not understand this crucial distinction that their efforts at liberation fail, and worse, cause the deceased to become even more lost. Today, I will reveal this secret, hoping to help more departed souls attain a smooth rebirth." The atmosphere in the Dharma hall instantly grew solemn. Everyone held their breath, attentively listening. Let me first share 3 true stories, and you will understand why this issue is so important. May the Dharma master pause for a moment and then begin to speak. 30 years ago, during my retreat at Mount Amay, on a cold winter night, I suddenly heard someone weeping bitterly outside the official residence. When I opened the door, I saw an old man kneeling in the snow, his whole body soaked by the wind and snow, yet he seemed completely unaware. The elderly man told me that his only son passed away from illness at the young age of 30. The local temple's monks taught him to recite the Kṣitigarbha Sutra for delivering souls. He remained awake without rest for 7 days and 7 nights, chanting the Kṣitigarbha Sutra from beginning to end 49 times. However, on the 7th night, he dreamed that his son was standing in darkness, his face distorted, crying out repeatedly, "Dad, I can't find my way. It's so dark here, so cold." The old man was awakened by a nightmare, feeling immense fear, so he climbed the mountain on foot to seek my guidance. Upon hearing this, someone in the Dharma hall gasped inwardly, especially those devotees who were performing merit transference rituals for their deceased relatives felt a profound shock in their hearts. The Dharma master paused briefly, allowing everyone to digest the story, and then began narrating the second case. 15 years ago, the mother of a female lay devotee was on her deathbed, repeatedly saying she was cold and could not feel warmth no matter what. The female lay devotee was extremely anxious and invited 7 Dharma masters to continuously recite the Rebirth Mantra day and night, hoping that her mother could peacefully attain rebirth. However, after 7 consecutive days, the elder's condition not only failed to improve, but his suffering intensified. At the moment of death, his face was filled with fear, and after death, his body became rigid and his features twisted, which was heartbreaking. This story touched the heart even more deeply. Many people in the Dharma hall began to weep softly, recalling their lost loved ones. There's also a third story that happened just last year. Master Zhiyuan's voice grew even deeper. After a devout layperson passed away, the family was divided into 2 factions. One insisted on reciting the Kṣitigarbha Sutra, while the other advocated for chanting the Rebirth Mantra. Ultimately, as a compromise, the 2 sutras and mantras were recited alternately, the Kṣitigarbha Sutra during the day and the Rebirth Mantra at night. After 76 days, the layman's son had 7 consecutive nightmares, dreaming of his father wandering between 2 forks in the road, trapped in a dilemma, and ultimately lost in darkness. May the Dharma teacher speak these stories with a calm tone, yet each word bears weight as if it were 1,000 pounds. The atmosphere inside the Dharma hall grew heavy, and many began to reflect on whether the transference of merit they had performed for their deceased relatives was appropriate. Delivering the deceased is like guiding those who are lost, earnestly hoping that the Dharma Master will lead them skillfully and benevolently. If you know where he intends to go, you should naturally point out the correct path to him. If one points in the wrong direction, not only will they fail to help him, but they will also cause him to become even more lost. It is like two different keys opening two different doors. Using the wrong key not only fails to open the door, but also causes one to miss the true opportunity. Just as the Dharma Master spoke to this point, he suddenly began to cough violently. A young novice monk quickly stepped forward to assist him, patting his back and handing him a cup of hot tea. Everyone's hearts tightened together, all worried about the old monk's health condition. Master Zhiyuan took a sip of tea to steady his breath and continued. So, what exactly is the difference between these two keys? In which circumstances should each be used? This is the essential secret I intend to reveal today. The atmosphere in the Dharma hall grew tense once again, with everyone eagerly awaiting the old monk to reveal the answer to the riddle. Especially the lay practitioners who had previously performed liberation rites for their deceased relatives but had failed to grasp the true meaning, hanging on every word with utmost concentration. The Kṣitigarbha Sutra is intended for the deceased who are still wandering in the six realms and cannot be immediately reborn in a pure land. The monk gently explained that when a person passes away, if due to karmic forces or a sudden death their body and mind cannot find peace, reciting the Kṣitigarbha Sutra is most appropriate at that time. Kṣitigarbha Bodhisattva's great vow in the Sutra of Kṣitigarbha manifests profoundly, especially in alleviating the suffering of the deceased during their intermediate state, bardo, possessing miraculous power. Some nodded in understanding, but most people were still waiting to hear more. The Rebirth Mantra is a practice that directly assists the deceased in being reborn into the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss. Master Zhiyuan's tone becomes solemn, but to recite this mantra, it is essential to ensure that the deceased meets three conditions, none of which can be omitted. The Dharma hall fell into sudden silence, everyone holding their breath in anticipation. The first condition is that the deceased must have had faith in the Dharma during their lifetime, or at least not reject Buddhist beliefs. If the deceased was an atheist during their lifetime or did not believe in an afterlife at all, then reciting the Pure Land Sutra is unlikely to have a genuine effect. The second condition is that the deceased must have a clear consciousness at the time of death and must not be in a state of coma or confusion. This point is extremely important because only a clear and conscious mind can generate the aspiration for rebirth in the Pure Land. The third condition, and also the most crucial one, is that the ruler must have the aspiration to be reborn in the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss. If a king has never heard of the Western Pure Land during his lifetime, or lacks the aspiration to be reborn there, no matter how many recitations of the Rebirth Mantra are made, it is difficult to guide him to reach the other shore. Venerable Zhiyuan's words were like a bright lamp, illuminating the doubts in many people's hearts. Especially his explanation regarding the three conditions truly enlightened everyone, bringing sudden clarity. An elderly lay practitioner stood up excitedly and said, "Master, I understand now. No wonder after my atheist cousin passed away, despite our numerous recitations of the Amitabha Buddha's name, we felt it was ineffective. It turns out it was because he did not meet these three conditions." Exactly so, Venerable Zhiyuan nodded and said, for those who had no faith or did not understand the Dharma before death, one should first recite the Kṣitigarbha Sutra to help them eliminate their fear and confusion about death, thereby calming their body and mind. Only when their spiritual state has stabilized should the Rebirth Mantra be recited to guide their rebirth. This approach is more effective. The discussion inside the Dharma hall gradually grew louder, but soon someone raised a new question. A middle-aged layman raised his hand and asked, "Master, since both types of sutras and mantras have their respective efficacies, why can't they be recited simultaneously? Wouldn't that allow one to obtain the benefits of both?" Master Zhiyuan did not answer immediately, but picked up the teacup on the table and signaled everyone to be quiet. "Everyone, please look at this cup of tea." The old monk slowly raised the cup and said, "You can either drink it to quench your thirst or pour it out to wash your face. If one tries to drink and wash at the same time, what would be the result?" After a moment of contemplation, a young man suddenly realized that it neither quenched thirst nor could wash the face, failing on both counts. For precisely this reason, I only wish for the Dharma Master to smile gently. The same applies to the deliverance of those who have passed on to rebirth. The Kṣitigarbha Sutra helps the deceased to find peace in the present and eliminates suffering. The Rebirth Mantra is used to guide them toward rebirth in the pure land of ultimate bliss in the future. If performed simultaneously, it is like placing the deceased at a crossroads, unsure of which path to take, which can instead cause greater confusion and may even result in losing the opportunity for a favorable rebirth. This vivid analogy enlightened everyone, and many nodded repeatedly, indicating their understanding of the principle within. However, there's one point that may be even more important than the choice of sutras and mantras. The voice of Master Von suddenly became solemn and profound, embodying the mindset of a sutra reciter. Regardless of which sutras or mantras are recited, the most essential aspect is to chant them with a sincere and compassionate heart. Some people invite hundreds of monks and have thousands of sutras and mantras recited, yet still fail to receive any spiritual response, simply because they lack a sincere heart. The atmosphere in the Dharma hall grew even more solemn, and many began to reflect on their own mindset when performing rituals for the liberation of their deceased loved ones. Venerable Zhiyuan continued, "Last winter, there was an elderly woman living in a remote mountain village, nearly 90 years old. Her children all live abroad, and she is cared for only by an elderly neighbor nearby. Before the elderly lady passed away, the neighbor, though illiterate, sincerely recited the Rebirth Mantra for her every day. Although his pronunciation was inaccurate and his words often flawed or omitted, his heart was truly sincere to the utmost. The miracle occurred as a result. On the day before the elderly woman's passing, she smiled and told her neighbor that she saw the Buddha's light and the 3 Pure Land Masters had come to guide her. The next morning, she peacefully closed her eyes, her countenance serene. A fragrant aroma filled the room, and the neighbors even saw a golden light drifting from the window toward the west. This touching story brought tears to the eyes of many people in the Dharma hall. The Venerable Zhiyuan, observing the moving expressions of the assembly, continued, "This is the true power of sincerity." An illiterate elder, due to a sincere heart, successfully aided the deceased in their rebirth, whereas those formalistic sutra recitations, even if grand in scale, were difficult to truly assist the departed. Venerable Zhiyuan paused briefly to let everyone reflect on the story, then summarized. Therefore, to perform transference of merit for the deceased, one must first understand the condition of the departed. The Dharma is boundless. The Dharma is boundless. Within the first 7 days after death, the deceased state is often very unclear, and they may not even be aware that they have passed away. At this time, one should recite the Kṣitigarbha Sutra to comfort them. From the 2nd to the 4th 7-day period, if the deceased had the intention to be reborn in the Pure Land during their lifetime and meets the 3 previously mentioned conditions, the recitation of the Rebirth Mantra can begin. From the 5th to the 7th stage, the choice of sutras and mantras should be determined by the reactions of the deceased. This detailed explanation prompted a low murmur of discussion among those present. Some have attained enlightenment, while others still harbor doubts. A middle-aged man who had just lost his father mustered the courage to voice the question that everyone held in their hearts. "Master, you mentioned determining based on the responses of the deceased, but since the deceased have already passed away, how can we know their reactions?" Venerable Zhiyuan, with a slight benevolent smile, said, "That is a well-asked question. In fact, if you sincerely recite sutras for the deceased, you can perceive the state of the departed in dreams or meditation. Sometimes the deceased convey messages through dreams, while at other times they manifest through various signs. Of course, this requires a certain foundation of practice, but what is needed even more is a sincere heart. At this point, the venerable volunteer appeared quite exhausted. His breathing became rapid, and his complexion grew increasingly pale. The attendant monk nearby saw this, stepped forward to support him, and said with concern, "Abbot, you should rest now." The venerable volunteer gently waved his hand, indicating that he still had more to say. He took a deep breath and gave the final Dharma talk to everyone. Remember well today's teaching. Transcendence is not a mere formality, but an act of sincere devotion. Choosing the right sutra scroll is important, but a sincere heart is even more important. Today, I reveal this secret not to seek novelty, but to help more kings embark on the path to liberation. May you all, with the right method and a sincere heart, help your loved ones peacefully attain rebirth in the Pure Land. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and attain happiness, swiftly realizing Buddhahood. After saying these words, the Dharma master clasped his hands together, smiled, and gently closed his eyes. At that very moment, a rainbow suddenly appeared above the temple, despite the sky being devoid of rain. Witnessing this extraordinary phenomenon, everyone understood it as an auspicious omen. 3 days later, Master Zhiyuan passed away at the age of 92, with thousands of monastics and lay practitioners bidding him farewell. Even more astonishingly, after the passing of the Venerable Abbot Yuanji, his body remained incorrupt for 7 days, his face adorned with a gentle smile, as if peacefully asleep. The monastery was filled with a fragrant aroma, manifesting many auspicious signs. From that day onward, the monks and devotees of Minzhong Temple gained a renewed understanding of the practice of liberation through rituals for the deceased. They no longer chant sutras blindly, but select scriptures and mantras based on the specific circumstances of the rulers. More importantly, they understood the significance of sincere intention, realizing that liberation is not a mere formality, but a genuine compassionate vow arising from the heart. Today, this secret has also been passed on to you. May this wisdom bring help to you and your loved ones, so that when facing the great matters of life and death, you are no longer bewildered, and may wisdom and compassion guide the king on the right path. Transcending the deceased, the Kṣitigarbha Sutra and the Rebirth Mantra each have their respective uses. The Kṣitigarbha Sutra soothes the souls lost in delusion. All rebirth mantras are due to rebirth in the Pure Land. What matters is not how many sutras one recites, but to recite them with a sincere heart. When intentions resonate, a natural response arises. The path of birth and death is contained within this simple yet profound principle. Remember the teaching of Venerable Zhiyuan. Use the correct method and a sincere heart to help the deceased attain a smooth rebirth. This is not only the greatest respect for the deceased, but also the greatest comfort for the living. Only by understanding the truth of birth and death can we truly be fearless in facing our ultimate destination. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and attain happiness, realizing enlightenment at an early time. Namo Amida Buddha.